Okay, so hi everyone. Thank you for being interested for contributing in this project. This recording will try to guide you throughout the project and whatever's been done till now. I'll mention what are the practices that we are following and how the current project structure is working. Okay, this is for the beginners and the new ones who have just started out and just joined the group and are eager to contribute in this project. Okay, so this is the project GitHub repository, conference Notify. As you might know, the objective of the project already, it's pretty self-evident. Uh, you should follow up the prerequisites. Okay, uh, we're hoping that you have these in your environment. I mean, it will be based on which part of the stack you want to work with. For example, if you're working with the front end, it's more likely that you would need Angular and Mongo or along with the node environment, though you would still require the Python because currently we haven't deployed the project, so you would actually require to run the scraper to get most of the information. So let's get into the contributing section of it. Okay, so let's go through the basic architecture of the project. We have a scraper service which is responsible for scraping the information from various different websites. So the scraper service, how it's written and how you can add your own websites for scraping, we'll discuss that later. The DB that we are using here is NoSQL MongoDB. The purpose was quite self-evident that we actually required no transaction in this system. All we needed to do is attach some data, so it made sense to choose a NoSQL DB. uh, we will be relying on Elasticsearch service for the indexing purpose. So why the indexing is required? Uh, to allow any user to search conferences based upon search query terms. This is your user application, and this is the core component as a notification service. The notification service is responsible for notifying the users based on certain criteria. We will see what those criteria are. So before you start committing or before you actually pull a PR, it's requested to all of you that you at least go through this. Okay, this section. This mentions how do you actually pull a PR and how you can go and pull the PR in a correct way so that it doesn't conflicts with our ongoing project. Okay, I'll show you some samples of how to do that. So so let's go on to the part of the project which is currently quite advanced, so we can discuss about it. Okay, scraper service, so it is the most advanced in this timeline, so it's almost in a working stage, and now most of it's the development that's going in scraper service is related to just improving the basic services. So the scraper service, as I've already mentioned, is responsible for scraping most of the information from whatever website we're targeting. Now, the scraper service itself is actually written in a plugin fashion. So let me show you how it is. So you can see this is the configuration.json. Okay, and the app.py requires a config file. This config file you can configure, or by default it actually picks up config.json. So what are the various information in the config.json? There is database parameters, that's a host, port, database name, collection name that you used, and file name, okay, and class. So actually you can also plug new database implementation using this plugin system. Okay, again, regarding the scrapers, we have wiki cfp and this one demo scraper. So how you implement a new scraper in this current project? So in order to do that, all you have to do is just navigate to plugins, and inside plugin, this is one demo scraper which you can actually copy and start implementing on. And all you have to do is just implement one class which can be named anything, and it has to inherit scraper. The scraper is an already implemented interface in the commons directory. Okay, and it does some basic initialization stuff which are required while runtime. And what you have to do is just you have to implement the parse action method. Okay, now however you parse your website. Okay, now remember that also we are using beautiful soup, but if you want to use something else, that's up to you. That's if you're comfortable with scrappy or some other framework used for parsing html documents, then it's up to you that how you do it. Now once you have passed the bare minimum information, those are title, url and deadline, then you are ready to actually commit the information. So once you have like created this instantiation, this object, it's called conference object, which again whose implementation you can find in the data models, and can be imported like this. And once you do that, all you have to do is push to db, which is already an implemented function in scraper.py, which is actually from where we are actually inheriting the scraper class. Okay, so in order to implement a plugin, all you have to do is just follow this demo scraper structure, implement parse action, and inside parse action you have to loop through all your links and then keep dumping the information through this function push to db, while it should conform to this structure of conference. And also there is a metadata information which you have to attach, so make sure you are doing that. Okay, and after you have written this, the only thing that remains is you have to register that plugin or that python file inside the plugins list of config.json. Okay, now those who are interested in rest of the implementation is quite well obvious and simple. The commons folder is actually a folder for all the interfaces. So commons include a database interface. It has errors for raising custom errors. It has the scraper interface, and any other future interfaces if required will be put into this one. Database is where one of the implementation of the database interface stands. Currently it's MDB. MDB stands for MongoDB. So it's the Mongo database implementation of it. Again, this has to be registered in the config.json, otherwise it won't be loaded. So in future, if somebody thinks of using some other database or some other alternative or better alternative comes, we can just simply re-implement the a file that is within the database folder and just simply register it here. The plugins, the code in the app.py will automatically just register this and pick up the registered database and do accordingly. Next is so since Python itself doesn't is not exactly type strict, or neither does Mongo have any kind of schema support unless you're using some kind of ORM. So we are actually using our own classes to create the data models. So conference is one of the data models which is used to contain the information of of a particular conference. So there are some basic necessities like title, URL, deadline, about as I've already mentioned. Metadata belongs to each of the individual scrapers or the plugins that you will be writing. As you can see, the metadata itself, that is which belongs to a individual scraper, contains these data. Self.worker, worker is basically the name of the scraper itself. These are the query data. So you don't have to worry about these things are already abstracted. All you have to do is just initialize it with these basic information. Each of these functions have their own docstring. So if you're using some editor like VS Code or anything by JetBrains, you will have good prediction and have a good doc to read through to understand how to use the function. Will it change? So let's run it. We'll see how it is. So suppose you want to test your plugin whether it's working or not. So if you try this, so currently we have set the arguments as app.py level of logging as debug, log stream, that is where the information will be written, that will be in file, and by default test is true. So when we do test is true, see, it doesn't have nothing happens here since we have actually given the log to be put into a file. So we'll look into the file, that is log.py. As you can see, our service starts. This is for the main. Let's look into the demo. So this is for demo scrapper. This is for WikiCFP. Nothing much happening here. We will now actually start our actual script, and let's hope it doesn't fail. Okay, so as you can see, it has already started scraping and is currently dumping them. There seems to be some error. So as you can see, this log will actually give you the hint that whether you have done some changes which is actually breaking your code or not. So make sure to log your activities of the scraper, because if you don't, it will not be possible for you to trace the changes. Also, I won't recommend using print all the time, but again, we generally do resort to using printing the state variables. That's fine, but when you're actually pushing the code, make sure that you're using logs. Please remove any kind of print statements that are around there that you have lying in your code. Just remove them and resort to only using logs. Okay. It seems can only handle up to 8 byte ints. Hmm, that's strange. I think my recent change. So this is one good window to actually show you that how you can read through this. So right now it's saying that failed to commit data error, and it's coming from WikiCFP. MongoDB can only okay. So we can actually go to the WikiCFP code and we can exactly see where it's happening. So it's coming from MongoDB, right? So we need to look at where we are pushing the data. right. Wait, where is it? It's push to DB. So it's push to DB. So go to scraper.py and it's not relevant. So we need to see where does db.put comes from. That's get database object. That means we need to look into, okay, no, sorry, mdb.py, because since currently that is the only one that's registered. And you look here and there seems to be nothing relevant. So I know where this issue is coming from. I'm just showing you guys why, how you can like localize such issues. So as long since Mongo is complaining about large integer, and I know where this is coming from. That's in conference.py, and it was a recent commit. I was experimenting whether this will work or not, but as it turns out it won't. I'll have to rely on string eventually, which I didn't want it to, but as it looks like that they don't offer much flexibility, because if you're saying that Mongo only supports 8 bytes integer, that's a bit of a problem, because currently UUID here is using I think but SHA algorithm of how many bits I'm not sure. I think it's 128 because the last time I checked it's a commit by someone else. So I'll have to see that what UUID, how many bits UUID is using. I think it's 128. Yeah. So let's see whether something was committed or not. No, nothing was committed. So that means it's clean and we can restart it. Okay, it seems it's working. As you can see, there are a lot of timeouts happening here. This is one of the issues that I'll actually put up, that to actually retry if timeout happens. So this is one improvement in the code that's required currently. Okay, okay then. So as you can see, we have the app.py running. Now the scraper is collecting all the information, and let's see, 31 is collected, 32, and so on and so forth. Also, I have anything else to show? Okay, so that was a scraper service. The Notify service is currently still in works. We're working on to get the basic structure ready. It already has a basic structure, so well, once we put up the issue, people can start working on them. Okay, let me just give a brief overview of this one also. Currently it's using Express, but the way I'm structuring the code, trying to make sure that it's independent to what people are implementing, although they will be relying on Mongo primarily, but for the web app which they will be relying on, I'm trying to like abstract away that component. So as you can see, you have to implement this conference controller, which is responsible for getting a list of conference, and that's it. Rest is handled by the application itself. Any kind of further such comments that will come, you will again be responsible for implementing such kind of abstract classes. Okay, so those of you who have any idea of IOC structure or inversion of control ideas, they will know that In this way, we can keep our code modular and localized. Any changes localized, I mean. Okay, let's show you some issues then. Okay, one more thing, that we are actually doing test driven developments. Like we have just recently set up our test. So make sure you always run your test. So before deploying, make sure you go through this. M test. Okay, if it passes, then it's great. If it doesn't passes, raise a issue, because it should pass, because most of the time when we are reviewing the PR, we generally make sure that this pass. Okay, we'll make sure that this pass. If it doesn't, or if it goes past our PR review somehow, then I hope someone catches it and raises an issue. So if it doesn't pass us, raise an issue. Always before running your code, make sure that it pass. Furthermore, we are also thinking of enforcing people to write their own unit tests, so that other don't have to worry about their implementation working or not. Okay, so currently we have all of these issues. Add new scrapper for, you can see some of them are taken. There are still some out there which are not yet given to anyone. Okay, I'm yet to so this is one issue. This is refactor app.py. It's taken by someone. So you can go through these various different issues and see which one interests you, and based upon that you can simply take those issues up. Okay, in order to go and take up any of the issue, kindly revert back to me and inform me that you would like to take the issue. Once you have taken up an issue, I hope that you don't just like take the issue and not respond back. After a day or two, do respond back. Put a comment on the issue, what's your current status, what you're working on, how much of it is done, because otherwise it's hard to like take the project down the line. We have a project timeline. If you guys do not follow it, it will be hard to keep that up. Let me show you one document that we had. This document can be found in the GitHub and also in Project Conference Notify channel in Slack. So if you see the project timeline, yeah, this is the first phase that we're currently going through, and these are few of the requirements that we need to fulfill by March 31st, so that we are not too late. The phase 2 will include more things, and yeah, kindly just go through this document, you'll have more clear idea. Okay, so that's all from my side. I hope this small introduction would serve you good, so that you can kickstart yourself and start working on the project. Thank you.